Happy New Year, everyone. This is Rob from RuinWorks back with our latest release. This is going to kind of cover our last two releases, both the original Weary Wyvern, the additional options I provided for the Weary Wyvern, as well as the options I provided in the updated Nobleman's Manor scene. So here we are at the Weary Wyvern scene. You can see on the right in our layers tool, we have 4 different levels. This here is our ground floor. It's here that we just have the yard for our inn. We have an exterior wall protecting the inn from intrusion. And we have a few buildings around here. So down at the bottom, we've got our entrance building. Just beside it, we have kind of a worker's house. So somebody who might work in the stables, or maybe the cook would live in this building. Up here at the top is our barn and storage area. And then on the right, we have our different inn rooms and tavern. First floor, we have a bit of a walkway around the outside of the buildings, more inn rooms, more tavern, and the second floor of the barn. And then on the second floor, we just have the single room for the owner of the Weary Wyvern itself. So I'm going to start on the ground floor, just going to run quickly through some of the options here, starting with these highlighted purple drawings in the margins. These are wall breaks, so by clicking these, you can add a break to the wall. This not only changes the image, it also changes the overhead tile here, so you can see now the light is kind of coming through as opposed to being blocked by the wall. So we have one there, as well as up here. You can add a small one too if you want. Next up in the top margin, this is what I've done with the second release. Both the wall breaks with the first release, but the second release I made a winter variation of the Weary Wyvern. It took some time because I had to do winter on all 4 different elevations, so I had to go through and add snow for all of them. But I think it came out pretty well, and I'm really happy with how I progressed working on snow. So just to switch it between summer and winter, we just hit the toggle here. You can see the scene is now covered in snow, and if we go up to the different elevations, I'll quickly show you. All the roofs have snow, as well as the walkways. It gives the scene a completely different feel, and I think it looks pretty good too. And if we want to switch it back to summer, we just hit the toggle again. Now I just wanted to mention with this summer-winter toggle, it is not compatible with our yard space variations at the bottom, which are for the summer only, and I've tried to indicate that here. So this is part of our first release of the month as well, the original Weary Wyvern. So right now we can see our yard space up here is empty, but we can select different things here. So it's not empty. If we hit cart 1, we can have a coal cart. If we hit cart 2, we can have a supply cart, and then lastly we can put in some stalls. I'll also note that the stalls do come with overhead shadows, as well as tarps over top as an overhead tile as well. So if you switch it to winter, it's automatically going to remove whatever yard option you had here in the bottom margin. I'll show you what it looks like if you want to try choosing one. You can try the cart, but you can see it's a summer in the middle of the winter scene, so it doesn't quite work as well. Also note that the trees do turn to the winter variation. With the original release of the Weary Wyvern, I provided a couple of options for the dining room, this one being the first here, seating 8. The second one, a table with 6 seats around it, and now I've added a third option. If you just keep on hitting the cycle room button for the dining room, we can get to this kind of prospector's room. So I always imagine this scene kind of being on the edge of the wilds. What's on the edge of the wilds? Prospectors looking for new treasure. So I thought it made sense here to have a prospector's room, and it also kind of matches cart 1, which could be a mining cart. So if you want to go for that sort of theme, you could have a mining cart as well as your prospector's room over here. The other room customization that I had with the first release was this kind of long room here. Right now it looks like 2 rooms, but I originally deleted it as a single common room where people can share lodgings for the night. But if you don't want to have that, you can change it to a bathing and toilets room. The reason there's 2 different buttons here as opposed to a cycle button is because I needed to change the walls, and I can't easily do that with one button. Doors inside, once you've done it, do work correctly. You go back to your common room. Those doors are have now disappeared. It should look correct to all of your tokens. So I'll just demonstrate that quickly. So now we're inside the room. If I go to my bathing toilets, now you can see the walls are all different. And the token can't see into the bathing area. If we switch it back to the common room, you can see throughout the room. I'll note here too, all of the lamps and fireplaces can just be double clicked to turn them on. And lamps are overhead tiles, so you see they kind of appear over top of our token. So what have I added with the second release for the Weary Wyvern? Well, you might have noticed this tavern room is filled with people. I also think tavern maps without patrons seems a little dull, so I thought I'd add an option to be able to provide those patrons inside of the tavern room. If you don't want them, you can see this tavern 1, room D. You can just take them out. But if you want to have them, it gives it a bit more atmosphere, makes it seem like more of a living tavern. Demonstrate, so this is the same for all of our fireplaces. Just double click that, the flame in front of the fire, and it should turn off and off the lights. Little note here, the doors all rotate now as opposed to just switch images. So I think that's a bit of a quality of life improvement. It looks a bit better. Additionally, there's a door here for the bar. You open that, the bar lifts up. These interaction points allow tokens to just climb up to the next floor. Use the stairs, yes, and now you can see his elevation is switched to 10. So there's 2 more rooms up here, rooms A and B. I've added the variations you can see with the second release. So room A can be a messy occupant or can be just empty. And same with room B, we can have a traveler's clothes strewn around the room or have it empty as well. And then lastly, over here, I wanted to point out a couple things in the barn. So if we go to our tile tool, we can see there's a ladder here with an interaction point to be able to climb up and down the ladder. If you double right click the ladder, you can drop the ladder to the ground. So if you have a player or an enemy in the barn who knocks the ladder over, you can double right click it and it removes the interaction point. So now the interaction point no longer works and is no longer visible. To set it back upright, you just double right click it again, and now it's upright and you can see your interaction point is back so players can use it again. The other thing I wanted to say is players might be smart and say, hey, there was a ladder in the barn. Maybe they need to bring it out to climb onto the roof somewhere over here. So if you go to your tiles tool up in the top right, you can see I'm on the tile tool. You can grab the interaction point and you can just drag it wherever you want. You can use shift and the wheel on your mouse to rotate it, or maybe they want to climb up onto this section of roofing. On the first floor, you can see there's now a ladder here allowing access. So just a bit of a quality of life thing there where you can move this ladder around, drop it to the ground as necessary. Next thing to note with the second release, I've added horses to both the barn and the little paddock outside. These can all be removed by a double click. So if you don't want the horses here, you can just double click them all to add and remove them, and same for the ones inside. And if you're looking closely, you'll see that some of the horses outside look like those inside, and I figured during the day the ones inside would probably be outside enjoying the sunshine in the paddock, and then at nighttime you might want to put them back inside and remove those outside. So it might be a good mini adventure if somebody steals horses from the inn. You can see there's walls around this cart. If you were to select a different variation, say the stalls, you can see our token sees the overhead tiles. If they scroll their mouse over top of them, they can see underneath. Same with our trees as well. And if they actually walk under the trees will disappear. You can see our little guy just under the branches now. If we take the empty variation, our token can see completely through the middle of the map here. If you open the door, you want to see inside, you just scroll your mouse over top of the overhead tile and it'll give you your view of the inside. So those are the variations for the ground floor. We'll go up to the first floor now. Here, I had 2 variations for rooms K and L previously. So we just have an empty room for room K. You can add a murdered person to the room, slumped at their desk. That was with the original release, as well as this ransacked room where things have been turned upside down. Somebody obviously searching for something in this inn room. And you can just turn it to a regular inn room as well. But I've also added variations for all the other rooms now. So for room I, we can have somebody who's been kind of doing some crazy ramblings, going through a lot of paper, writing down a manifesto of some sort. If you want to look at room J, it is what I've called the soldier's room. So you can see now it's filled with weapons and armor. So obviously some sort of mercenaries or soldiers have taken over the room or are staying here. If we go down to the tavern area, you can see there's a tavern 2 button here for room M. If we click that, again, I've added patrons just to give the place a bit more liveliness. Down here we have rooms N, O, P, and Q. So room N, we can put in this mysterious kind of orb in the room that starts to glow. And I've also outfitted it with some wizard's apparel. So who knows what might be going on in this room, but maybe the PCs are searching for this orb and have tracked it down to this wizard in this room. Room O It's just a sleeping patron. I thought that might be convenient if you have a thief in the party who's trying to steal stuff from patrons. They might sneak into a room where there's actually somebody sleeping in it. Room P. This is what I've called the thieves room. So you can see there's some thieves tools, cat burglaring equipment, and weapons lying around the room. So maybe there's a group of thieves hiding here, preying on other patrons, or seeing who's passing through here so they can rob them on the road. And then lastly, I have the room Q for the runaway lady. So I just kind of outfitted it with dresses, makeup, and luggage. So maybe there's a lady who's trying to avoid an unwanted marriage. Maybe it's not even a lady. Maybe it's a man disguising themselves as a lady to hide from law enforcement. Could be used for a bunch of different things. So these last 4 down here, 4 rooms, N, O, P, and Q, new additions, as well as M, I, and J. Those all came with the second release. And lastly, we can go up to our second floor. This room here, room R. It's only got one variation. I consider this to be the owner's personal space. So this is where the owner of the Weary Wyvern would live. And again, we can just turn off and on fire by double clicking. So that kind of brings me to the end of the Weary Wyvern. I'll also note I didn't have a journal note previously, but I've added one in. I don't go into too much detail, just to give you an idea of what can be done. I'm pretty happy with how the winter variation turned out. I think it looks pretty good. I like having the snow up on the walkways a bit. Really gives it like it's being lived in, but also during the winter. Okay, so now we've done the Weary Wyvern. I'll go show you the updates I've made to the Nobleman's Manor scene. Here we have our Nobleman's Manor, as hopefully you guys all recognize it from previous release. Nothing has changed from the previous release, except I've added a couple of buttons here. Like the Weary Wyvern, I have created a winter variation. So if we hit the winter toggle on the top, we can see all the tiles turn to a winter variation. So ground floor, first floor, you can see we have these little areas of snow outside. Second floor, you can continue seeing some of our roofs covered in snow, and then the rooftops are also snow laden. And then last thing I've added here is toggle all guards. So similar to the horses in the Weary Wyvern scene, you can click on this button and it'll put in some dead guards around the scene. So there's one here in the mini courtyard, there's one here guarding the entrance to the courtyard, and one here guarding the entrance to the Nobleman's Manor completely. And if you don't want any of them, you can just double click and they will just disappear. I've added these little G's just so you know where they can be added and removed. So you just come back to the G. If you forgot where they were, you can double click it, turn them on. That's it for now. Hope you enjoy the new release. Next release is going to be the Fungal Grotto. We're going back to the Dwarven Ruins of Grinvir. And then that's the next release I'm planning on making for January. Thanks everyone. Talk to you again soon.